Welcome back to another episode of Analyst Hour. I'm your host, Andrew Regan. Joined with me in the studio is junior analyst Ryan Cadigan. Welcome back, Ryan. It is such a pleasure to have you.
Andrew, thanks for having me.
This is the third week without analyst Michael Goldsmith. I don't know what he's been analyzing to uphold that prestigious title he gets. So maybe, check out Indeed or Google Jobs or LinkedIn. There may be an opening for an analyst role because we just have one guy who is not holding up his end of the bargain. But
Wow.
nonetheless, Ryan, we have stuff to analyze. A light week, if we're gonna call a spade a spade. It's definitely been a light week. This is kind of the lull where a lot of teams have their sights set on playoffs, so they really kind of they take their foot off the gas in terms of the regular season, considering four teams are already clinched in the playoffs. One is eliminated, and then the other two are really fighting for that last spot. So next week will be exciting for a few of the teams, but generally speaking, a lot of our minds are set on playoffs. So why don't we dive in real quickly just to the matchups that happened in week 5 and get in a little bit of the results. Let's start off with the most exciting game, in my opinion, and that was the huge upset. We had the Seabirds upset the undefeated Sizzlers 21-14. Obviously, this is a huge deal because Connor Foom, the Sizzlers, were going for the first ever undefeated regular season in the ASL. With the absence of AJ Clark, they couldn't get it done against the Seabirds. Ryan, what were some of your takeaways of that game?
Yeah, the two things really to me were the Seabirds are really good, and AJ Clark is really valuable to this team. And obviously, we've seen Schuart and Connor run teams before that haven't been able to get it done. Uh, I think everyone, though, even back from post draft conversations, the real conversation was how did AJ Clark fall that far? And he's really a perfect fit for them. Seemingly to all of our NBA fans out there, like it kind of felt like that missing piece in what the Celtics were getting with the Drew Holiday, kind of like that utility guy. So that was really, that was my first take. And then my second was, and I even brought this back to going into last week, the beginning of the doubleheader, was we were favored -4.5 against the Seabirds, and they were getting their full team back. Now, I know I'd gone to you behind closed doors and I was talking to guys at the court, but I'm like, this was the wrong line to set. Obviously, we got our ass kicked. Um, and I think that's just a testament to how good this Seabirds team is when fully healthy and when they're all there. And Carter's really unstoppable as a big. That was shown. Guys need to contest and close out on Dan Gergis. That was shown. And Resendez, even though he may not be scoring as much as the other captains, he really he has that basketball mind and makes the right plays and the right decisions when he needs to. So if I were in your conference, Andrew, the Seabirds aren't a team I would want to see get hot at this point in the season. We're going to see what they're going to do next week. But yeah, this was a game for the Sizzlers that they could afford to lose. Obviously, they're playing us going into this week. We're eliminated, though we're really hungry for a win. So that should be a good game. But those were my takeaways. How about
Yeah,
you?
it's so crazy how the narrative on the Seabirds has really turned around. Everyone was kind of making fun of them. We acknowledged that they didn't have their captain to show up. Their captain didn't show up. So, we weren't given 100% shitting. But
Yep.
again, they are a force to be reckoned with when they all show up and they're all in their game. I do want to harp on Dan Gergis, and I really want to credit Dan Gergis. He's one of the few players in the ASL who can consistently hit threes. We talked last week how it's so valuable to have a guy who hits shots that he should hit, and
Right.
Dan Gergis is that guy. However, why does no one guard him behind the arc? It's
I don't get it.
insane. He
It's
has really set up shop behind the arc. He and he's catching heat, and no team has really made adjustments. I'm very curious to see how, people handle him next week. I'm very curious to see that if and when playoff times roll around for the Seabirds, how people are going to adjust to Dan Gergis. Because keep in mind, guys, playoffs is a series best 2 out of 3. And I should say this, no one gets a game advantage anymore. We haven't done that in 2 years, but that's a common question. Games to 15. So if you don't adjust to Dan Gergis out of the gate, or any team for that matter, but for the sake of this conversation, Dan Gergis, you're not going to have much time to do it. You need to
right.
come out of the gate very hot. That's something that the Seabirds and Dan Gergis have shown that they are capable of doing. So
Yep.
you plug Dan Gerges behind the arc, and your main concern then becomes Carter. You're dealing with ones instead of twos at that point. It's far easier. So I don't know why no one guards him behind the arc, but all credit goes to Dan Gerges. The guy is lethal, and you know it will probably reflect come most improved time. That's one of
And
my little early takes.
yeah, and I was just going to mention that, Andrew. And one more thing, kind of to add to that, was, you know, usually when you hear about like commitment and passion for your team and wanting to show up and be there all the time, and Dan Gerges in past seasons, that wasn't always there in the same conversation. And to me, not only is his consistent 3-point shooting, but his consistent devotion to his team and wanting to get into the playoffs and make a deep run. Those are the deciding factors, in my opinion, to go off of what you were just saying, where he's going to be definitely getting my vote as of right now for most improved.
Yeah, and I think again they'll do a great job, and they'll put Dan Gerges on for offense. They'll put Nick Germano on for defense. They have really found their scheme, and I did not think they were going to do it just because I thought they were so far behind due to absences. They have really found their scheme. It's been really fun to watch them, and you're right, like we can't look over them anymore. They are a legit team, and if they are in the playoffs, even if they lose, they're going to keep games a lot closer than people originally would have thought. Now I do want to hop over to Sizzlers. And, this question isn't really coming from a place of authenticity. It's more coming from, I want to stir the pot a little bit. Um, we look at Connor Fu and Matt Schuerk as this duo. And I'm so happy, and I said this earlier in the season, I'm so happy Connor Fu did not jump ship on Connor Fu. I'm sorry, on Matt Schuerk this year. I think they both agree that they had unfinished business, that they didn't reach their full potential as a duo, and
Right.
they're obviously reaping the benefits right now. Granted, they are the one seed in the hardest conference we've seen in ASL history.
Yep.
So I kind of look at them as like the Jays. A lot of people, the vast majority were saying break them up. They can't work together. I was in the minority, so pat myself on the back. They got to keep doing it. I think they are seamless. Just give them time. We gave them time. We're seeing how it's working. But for the sake of stirring the pot, I'm going to pose this question to you. Like I said, not coming from a place of authenticity, just for the sake of stirring the pot.
Got
The
it.
absence of AJ Clark, the Sizzlers looked like a whole new team and not for the better.
Yep.
If you're Connor Fu next year and you're redrafting, are you prioritizing AJ Clark or Matt Schuerk?
Wow. It's a great question. It's going to depend on where he's drafting. You know, in my captain days, I'm a huge proponent of trading, trying to optimize where you are in the draft based on who you want. I think that's a decision for him. And I don't know, Andrew. I think I'm going to stick with Schuerk probably. And the only reason being is I don't see AJ falling that far again. So he's either going to have to buy really high on AJ because I don't think he's going to be able to buy low on him again, or he'll have to probably buy around similar caliber of where Schuerk has been going in past years. So I think it's going to be Schuerk to answer your question, but I think going off of that, and I can't think of who was like other guys he's had in the past off of him. Maybe Gerges he's had in the past with
Ted
Schuerk.
Gerges had Sam Holland,
Right. So
I think Baraldi.
I think what I think we learned from AJ with his team this year, though, and like he's not going to be able to assemble this team again next year for sure.
They need to
Um,
get it done now.
right. That's yes. 1A, absolutely, you need to get it done now. But two, like I think that is the role that we've like that utility guy, defense first, can get you rebounds, like plays in the paint, can knock down shots. Like that is the type of archetype that he's going to be looking for, what he should be looking for going into the draft next year.
Well, actually, let me throw this out to you. And let me tell, and maybe this changes your mind, maybe it doesn't. If I'm
Yep.
Connor Fu and I'm thinking, okay, I obviously can't have one of these two guys next year. You have the greatest rebounder of all time and arguably the greatest defender, or you have someone who is, just one tier below that defender, but has all the intangibles that it takes to have a very winning team. AJ is a very winning player. What is harder to replace? You can get a Carter who brings the rebounding that Schuerk kind of had, that can kind of bring the rebounding that Schuerk has. And, he is a former DPOY winner. Is he
Yep.
as mobile and athletic as Schuerk? No. But then let's go to AJ. With the absence of AJ, and we saw it, they only put up 14 points. Where those intangibles lie in the draft, I don't know if you're going to find them. So I would argue AJ, and again, this is just for the sake of stirring the pot, those are harder to replace.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. AJ's a champion. There's not many names on that ASL trophy. AJ is one of them. You and I are as well. Um, I think there's real value in that. And he's made these deep playoff runs. He's seen a lot of different matchups. Um, this is not to discredit Shurik at all. Shurik, like you said, is the greatest rebounder ever. Um, I think a lot of that in a lot of the Connor Shurik duo is based around like that individual greatness, and they're able to build up those stats together, but does it convert to winning? And when you have AJ on the floor, it converts to winning, confirmed. So I don't know if that kind of goes against what I said, in the last question of
Just for the
prioritizing
sake of
Shurik over
conversation.
AJ. But I think like what's more replaceable would be Shurik. But given where he'll be in the draft, I think Shurik could probably be the more uh, appropriate pick at the time. But now that we talk about it, I don't really know. He can't really go wrong either way. Like, because I was just thinking, like, if he got AJ at 2, and everyone say like that's an overpay for him, and like I'm thinking about it now, and like it really isn't. And he won with Steve. He's played with Colin, had one of his best years, and he's having one of his best years again now. So like
Well,
we're
if
gonna
you're
see
Connor
his
and you're like, hey, I want to prioritize getting AJ, and it sucks, but if I'm going to part ways with Shurik, he can trade down where it's more appropriate to take AJ in the first round and then invest for better picks in the second and third.
right,
Connor is very comfortable with having this even keeled, highly skilled, deep team.
right,
And if I'm him, I wouldn't blame him for trying to replicate that to some extent. We'll never see it like this again, but
yeah.
to some extent next year. And it might be going AJ late first round route.
Yeah, no, you make a
Something to
good
think
point.
about.
And it would be, yeah, and you said it right, and we'll leave it at this, but like it would have to go by way of trading, even if it's down a couple slots, because I don't even know if AJ will go late first. He may go mid first next year. Who knows? So it would have to be some sort of combination of that. Either way, AJ's winning is irreplaceable, but Shuerk's overall talent is, if you're up there high in the first round, I think you got to go with that.
Um, Now I also want to, before we hop off the Sizzlers, I do want to pose one more question for you.
Sure.
Has Connor Fu, given his success this year, and we said it a few moments ago, built this pressure around him where if he doesn't get it done this year, he never will.
Oh man.
Meaning, if he doesn't get it done this year, what does the narrative surrounding Connor Fu look like? And, what does the future behold for him? Because we said, like, this will never happen again.
You know, there definitely is a pressure, right? It's tough though, because like you just said, like this is the greatest like well-rounded team we've seen, and like the up until last week like undefeated, but also on the like conversely in the hardest conference we've seen. So like it's hard because like it's almost like the Celtics, and like when they were making their run, like if they were to lose in 7 to the defending champs and the Nuggets or something, like could you blame them for that? Right. Like if they were to lose to a hot Steve Shaw in the playoffs, or a Thunderbirds that, finds their way, that makes it to the finals, like it's hard to judge. There's definitely a pressure. I think this is the best team and probably the best chance they'll get, especially if they clinch the 1 seed. Um, so to answer your question, yeah, I think there is a pressure. And if they don't get it done this year, I'm not too optimistic that Connor will get it done after this year. So yeah, if you want to put it in black and white, sure. I think the pressure is on Connor to get it done this year. However, there are some caveats to that.
I completely agree. I'm going to echo that. And I'll tell you the caveats for me. Um, if Steven Shaw wins again, I think Connor Fu is safe.
Yep.
Like, okay, we rigged this draft to take away Steven's resources. We successfully did it, and he still won. We're all safe.
Right.
However, if he loses in the conference finals to, say, Jack Curtin, or even makes the finals and loses to someone in the West, that's where, the eyebrows start raising.
Right.
And the beauty in the playoffs, they are shorter games by 6 points, but they are a series. So you do get a few at bats the goal is why we do the playoffs is, hey, we want to make sure it's not a one-time fluke, even though the championship is different, but at least you had those series under your belt to really prove your name in the playoffs. So that's why we do it. So that's what I'll say. If Steven Shaw wins, he's safe. If anyone else wins, that's when we start raising some eyebrows. And I think he's got to get creative with his draft next year.
Yeah, I would
But
agree.
I'll leave it at that. Next game, we have the Hoopers defeating the Thunderbirds 21-20. Um, the Hoopers, we have to give them their flowers. Everyone was looking at the Sizzlers to get the best season record this year, but like the Sizzlers, the Hoopers are now 5-1.
Which I don't think anyone saw coming.
No, no one did. And that's why I think Jack Curtin's season is one for the ages. I
Yep.
think he is the absolute runaway favorite for MVP. He's had this revolving door of teammates. No, nothing has been consistent in his life in terms of the ASL except for winning.
Right.
Crazy to think about. He obviously took down the T-Birds. It was a great game. I'll tell you right now, T-Birds came out flat-footed. Jack Curtin and Campbell Prentice are such an underrated duo in this league now that Campbell has arrived. I think they work very well together. You could tell that they talk about the game behind closed doors. It translates to their play. They are a very fluid looking offense, despite who is their third and fourth guy. Jesse, we're praying for you. We want to see you come out in the playoffs, man. Tragedy struck far too early. Tragedy is never timely.
No.
And yeah, I'm really excited to watch the Hoopers. I'm anticipating on them making some great playoff run. And T-Birds, they dug themselves a grave that was too big for them to get out. I think we went into halftime 11-3, which means T-Birds had to have an 18-point second half if they wanted to win. They put up 17 points. So for them, again, adjustments need to be made quickly if you don't come out of the game hot come playoff time. So I need to look closely at the T-Birds because if the games were to 15 now, there's a good shot they'd have one win under their belt. So when
I have a
playoffs
question
happen,
for you, Andrew.
go for it.
Do you think that so far, just looking at both teams respectively this season, do you think the Hoopers are more overachieving, or do you think the T-Birds are more underachieving?
I think the T-Birds are very much underachieving. I mean, 2 out of their 3 wins came interconference, and the one out of conference game was against you guys. And again, we were down like 12-2 at half.
Yeah.
They need to get their shit together. They need to come out ready. They need to come out with a game plan. You can't be chasing your tail for the first half. It's just not going to work like that come playoff time. However, I think the Hoopers are not overachieving in the slightest. I think the Hoopers are a 5-1 team, and by Hoopers, I really mean Jack Curtin because he's been the only common denominator in all these games.
Right.
I do want to ask you, Ryan.
Go for it.
Justin Mburu makes his return in the playoffs. Justin
Right.
Mburu is a very trigger happy player, and that's not a critique. That is merely an observation. He's
Mm-hmm.
going to take a lot of shots. He's going to be a part of a lot of plays. Does that ruin the mojo that Jack Curtin and Campbell have already established, or is Jack Curtin that adaptable where he's going to be able to make that work, or will it just work?
Yeah, I think it's the latter. I think Curtin's adjustable. I think he empowers his teammates. I think he believes in his teammates, and he drafted everyone for a reason. Uh, you know, it's been said around the league a couple times, and in the whole debate of he's had this kind of revolving door of players around him all season could be looked at one of two ways. It could help his MVP case, or in some cases, for example, I know our Phantom Week when they had Trot and Zuko, like I know we wish we could get that game back purely for matchup purposes against like their real core of players. So like it's interesting kind of the variance of players and the variance in different types of players that they've had over the season. Now, whether that's helped them or not is up for debate. However, that said, I think it just really emphasizes Curtin's versatility and adaptability with his team and as a player and impact on winning. So I think Mburu's going to come in. I think he's going to bring high energy. And I think at the end of the day, he's team first. And these guys all know this. They know what they're working for. They know the conference they're in. So while I think it may be a little bit more of a different look, I think Curtin is still going to get his. That won't be an issue. And it's just a matter of can they take down Steve and what will likely be that first round matchup.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. Um, I'm done with this game and these teams. If you're
Yep.
ready to move on, is there anything else you want to touch upon when it comes to the Hoopers or the Thunderbirds?
I guess with the Thunderbirds, you kind of quickly glazed over. It was your team, like flat footed, but we talked about this, playing to 15 in the playoffs once these series start, and then the finals will be 21. Are you at all worried about the T-Birds and your now at this point, it's become a pattern of your slow starts as we get into playoffs, especially with the emergence of the Seabirds at full health?
Yeah, great question. If we didn't go on a 17-point run, like a 17-6 run before crunch time,
Yep.
relatively probably like 16-6 run before crunch time.
Yep.
I'd say yes. I'd absolutely say yes. However, the reason we were able to get on that run is because in the huddle and halftime, we were like, we have to switch the energy. And that's when Ian and I started getting really annoying.
Yep.
Announcing the score after every time we scored, clapping after the smallest victory, whether it be a almost intercepted pass for a steal that went out of bounds, and the Hoopers still maintain possession. We're getting in each other's ear, we're hyping each other up. We
Right.
needed to light a fire under our ass. So if we can implement that, the answer is no. I'm not worried because I think our ceiling is very high.
Mm-hmm.
If we don't, if we don't do that, yeah, I think I think every player has the right to be worried. So I think the responsibility of shifting the energy is falling on Ian and I's shoulders because it definitely more aligns with our personality, being loud, being vocal. I mean, I think that's why, Colin partly drafted me. He knows I really don't shut up, and I kind of have. So, getting loud, getting the energy going, that's going to translate to the play. I think that helps your teammates. I also think it annoys your opposition, which is a, great double-edged sword. So,
Yep.
no, I'm not worried. Of course, I'm not worried, but I think that was a very valid question.
Yeah, no, good answer. And I know you guys won't have Colin next week. We'll get into matchups later in the episode, but how teams finish their season is very strong. So even if you don't win, it's how you play, it's how you look, and that goes for every team. So we'll get into
Yeah.
that.
Now we have your personal game. I was really looking forward to watching it. The Phantom defeat the Legion 21-20 in an absolute slaughter. The Phantom were playing with purpose and it reeked of it. Rye, why don't you break down that game for us?
Yeah, it's no secret that our team is pretty disappointed after the playoff elimination. There's a lot of games hindsight is 2020. There's a lot of things you wish you could change looking back on each matchup we've had. And we just kind of gathered as a team after our doubleheader loss, and we're just like, we're in the position we're in, but we're way better of a team than how, it may be reflected on the score on the record sheet. So we just want to finish the season strong. We want to play, play for that respect and play for ourselves and just have some fun with it. So I think since we've kind of had that mentality switch, we've been playing so much more of how I envisioned Phantom basketball would be throughout the season. And Alex, man, played as good as any of, an MVP candidate could. It took him, a little bit in like the first quarter of the game to kind of find his rhythm. But, I was telling him like when he squares up at the top of the key and he can get into his motions, like I have 100% confidence he's finishing every time. And when his three ball starts working and that gets in the mix, like he's, in my opinion, the best captain in the game. So, that was on full display. Costa had an incredible game. Like I thought we had decent defense, but just better offense. He was having like some real highlight finishes. And credit to the Phantom. I joke with Mike that we were coming after him after Mike was saying, putting the Phantom low, and he was right to his credit. We're out of playoffs, but we definitely had this game circled. We wanted to have some fun with it, and on a really hot day, I think we came out to play, and everyone did their part.
Yeah, I think that's a really good breakdown. And we can address the elephant in the room. I think you guys were playing with a little bit of spite in the sense that, Michael said you guys weren't going to make the playoffs. Unfortunately, he was correct. I said you guys were going to have a forgettable season. Were these things in between your ears when playing
Definitely.
that game?
Definitely. Some of those things more than others, some to some of us more than others. But at the end of the day, bro, like even though we got eliminated like wicked early in the season, like we've all said, like this is probably the most fun we've had with the team. Just like between the vibes in the locker room and how we've like really come together towards the end of the season. So we definitely want to finish strong against the Sizzlers, but we were down like 20-16 or something, or 20-15 at one point in the game. And then Alex just went on like a 5 or 6-0 run by himself. And it was incredible to watch.
He's such
And
a winner.
it was one of those things, like it was one of those finishes that we were like, I was hoping to see at the end of our T-Birds game. Like we just need that one lay to get it done. And obviously it didn't. The game works the way it does. And we were happy to get this one back. And we obviously know how good the Sizzlers are and what a challenge that will be. So we're hoping to take this momentum into next week.
Yeah. I
I'll say
really,
this though. Sorry, last thing. Credit to the Legion. They were like way better than I thought they were going to be. Louis insane. He missed a couple of bunnies that like had he made that game probably could have been wrapped up. But I just think we were really determined to get a win that game. We didn't really see a loss in the cards for that week. And George Kamboris did a great job on me defensively. I had a really fun matchup with him. And like I said, I can't stress enough how good of a game Costa had.
yeah, no, Costa was
Just to
electric.
hit both
I've
sides.
always, yeah. Um, Costa was electric. I hold Louis, George, and Michael also to a very high standard. But I also really want to shout out to the Phantom in that you guys have handled the early playoff elimination so far with such class and such poise. You know, a few years ago, we always said, let's have every team make playoffs. That's when we did the 1 game advantage because we wanted to have some incentive of placing at a higher seed. Um, because our biggest fear was when a team doesn't make playoffs, they throw in the towel, they don't show up. And the
Right.
fact that you guys showed up this week, played incredibly well, like how your purpose now is to make your own season look better on paper, but also to tear down other people's seasons is the right way to look at it.
Have some fun with it. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
and you guys have handled it so well, and I'm excited to see what you do next week. But I really wanted to kind of give you a clap out because not a lot of people can say that they handle it so well, and you guys really took it on the chin and have such a great mentality with it. And for that, as a commissioner, like someone who puts so much work into this league, like I thank you because
Yeah,
if people throw in the towel a little bit too early, it's like insulting. So
for
thank you,
sure, bro. For
and that was
sure.
on the
So
bottom of my heart.
yeah, no, it's a fun season. We're going to continue to have fun with it. I want to get into Black Bears and Dogs because I'm really excited to get into next week's matchups and the playoff implications.
Yeah, let's do it. Do you want to take the reign on the Dogs Black Bears game? We obviously the Dogs won 21-15.
Yeah, so I'm trying to just recall like just my observations from when I was watching. Steve's insane. Pat is, in my opinion, should be one of the Roll Man of the Year noms. Dude, when his 3-point is going, like he is lights out. He's so
Yep.
quick when he drives. Like that's a really, we talk about duos. We talk about Schuerk and Connor. Like there's Schuerk and Connor. There's all these other duos, and then there's Pat and Steve up here, and they've proved it time after time. And even after throwing, everything in the kitchen sink at Steve to try and like disable his team, like he somehow makes it work. So like
I don't
it's
know. If
crazy
he
that
wins
they're in
this
this
year, I
position
don't know
they're in.
what we're gonna do next year.
I don't know, man. I don't know. But like the other thing I'm seeing though too is like the Black Bears are like Silva's really locked in and like they only have 1 win, but like I don't think that reflects the intent that he's had on this season. And if they're able to squeeze into the playoffs, dude, like we see what he can do on his playoff run. So
Well,
I
can we pause? Can I
yeah,
can I
go.
ask you? I completely agree. Like I think, and I'd put the Phantom in this as well. Their record doesn't reflect how good they are. I
Yep.
think the Black Bears are a fairly threatening team. They have the size. We always said their scoring wasn't really going to be there, and that unfortunately has rung true. I don't think that was going to translate to 1 win, though. I don't think anyone would have called that. They have such a locking captain. Cole's going to get a D point on. We know what Arvin's capable and Arvin and Luke are capable of as well. So, like, what is the Black Bears' problem? What is their issue? Why do they only have 1 win?
Yeah, I think it comes down to like offensive continuity. I think they kind of,
They
they
also show up. That's another thing. We always say availability is best ability. We're rarely phoning a Black Bear sub.
yeah, it's a good point. I think you see with some of these teams, like with the Dogs, they play very fast paced. They'll clear it and they're right back in. They're right back to get it going. And like from what I recall, like there can be some stagnance on the Black Bears offense, and luckily Cole's mid range has looked really good as of late. I know he's known for his mid range, and I just recall from the last few games I've seen, I'm like, wow, he's really hitting these really efficiently. And efficiency is key in this league. So I don't know. I haven't looked at Arvin's numbers. Is Arvin making his shots? Is he missing his shots? There's been this
It's funny
discourse
you
with
bring up
Arvin.
Arvin and ask that question. Our the head of stats under the ASL organization has been a bit lackluster and procrastinating on the stats. So I wish I'd be able to tell you, but
Okay.
we don't have those numbers.
Yeah. Well, all I will say is I know there's the discourse with like we've seen Arvin as the lizard, and when he was the lizard back in the day, like he was, in his words, our offense. So, when he gets hot and he's just as good of a scorer as anyone when he's hot. But conversely, when he's cold, and you've seen this when he was playing with Collins' team, I can't remember the name, but like that that kind of affected you guys in the playoffs. And I think that could be one of the questions is what Arvin are we going to be getting going into each game? And I think if he's clicking and Cole's mid range is clicking and Silva's going to show up on both ends every time, that's the team I don't want to see in the playoffs as well. But there's a lot of contingencies to that. So if they can wrap it up, and they got to get this win in the final week, and we'll go into that. But this is really, they're playing for their season, but they're really playing for a chance in the playoffs as well.
So I really thought about this question, for a few days before posing it to you. And I think I boiled it down to this, and by no means is this like a eureka moment, but I just don't, we say it all the time. This is a game of runs, being make it, take it. When, an offensive possession in theory can last 21 points. The best teams have their offensive possessions usually last like 5 to 7 points at a time. That I think is a key factor that the Black Bears have not really shown. You know, I obviously I do stats. I watch a lot of the film. I'm not alone. I've never once heard myself say or others say like, "Oh my God, the Black Bears put together this insane run."
It's a
Oh,
great
we
point.
thought we thought we had them, but oh my God, the Black Bears really went on this 8 point run to close out the game. So that's my thing. I don't think that falls on anyone in particular. I think that's just, you can call it the personality, you can call it the idiosyncrasy of the Black Bears. I think you make a good point. I think stagnant is a good word. It's hard to get a lot of possession. That's not true. It's easy to get a lot of possessions. It's hard to string the runs together.
Yeah,
And I think if they nail that down, that could be the last piece for the Black Bears. Um,
totally.
so that was it for me. Like I said, I don't think it falls on anyone particularly. It's just more of a team thing. Cole has looked incredible offensively and defensively, and like I said, Nick is incredible, incredible, and hot Arvin is pretty unstoppable. Hold Arvin can be a detriment because he does shoot a lot of threes, but the only way to see which Arvin you're going to get is you need him to take these threes and to stretch the floor because shooting's not really going to come from anyone else. Um,
And
but
look, I'll leave it off with saying this: like we've seen Nick Silva put it together in the 12th hour, and like this time around, and I remember being, we were kind of flip flopped at this point in time, but like back in the Stampede year when I was on the Swarm, we we needed them to lose to Connor's team at the time to in order for us to make the playoff berth, and like that's when they really caught their heat. And if they can do that, who's to say they can't do that again this year? This time they're going to need a little bit of luck with some other games going their way, but if they can get that done, man, and they get a spot, and that's like I said, that's not a team I want to see.
yeah, so let's talk about this. So for next week, our final matchups on June 30th is
Right.
got the Black Bears T-Birds, Legion Seabirds, Black Bears T-Birds, Legion Seabirds, Hoopers, Dogs, and then Sizzlers Phantom. Um, I don't have all the what would happen and what could happen in terms of first seeding in the East. So
Yeah. Well, it's I
just
kind of
win
do.
your game, take care of your shit is what I
Well,
gotta
if
say.
so the big game that I'm looking at
Hoopers,
is,
Dogs.
and that is, if the Dogs win that, then the seeding will switch. But if we're able to pull off the upset against Sizzlers and then Hoopers take that, then we're going to see the big first seed switch, and
Yeah.
that's going to be something to look out for.
And then the Legion taking on the Seabirds. I'm really excited for that game purely as a spectator. It's it's been no secret that Michael and Dan exchange words. It's almost like they play for each other all the time, and
It's
they
kind of
always
cute.
play.
Kind of cute.
They do have it's like romantic in a way. I don't think of any other man when I'm playing, but
Oh my
these guys
god.
really do play with purpose. Um, and now they get to be face to face. And if I'm not mistaken, Costa will not be there, which means it's all Michael is getting full minutes. He's getting the start. I'm really excited. I think this is going to be really funny no matter what happens. This is
No,
going
they're
to
gonna love being
be
face
good.
to face, and there. And then I'm excited to see what matchup, like, what are they gonna throw GK on Carter? Like, how is that gonna work?
Yeah. I wonder if Dan, because one thing I love about Dan Gerges is that he bets on himself without fail. And
Me
I
too.
wonder if he's gonna like almost abandon the hey, we have a guy who's a foot taller than everyone else. Let's run it through him and just get this win. And making the playoffs will be enough leverage I can have on Michael to make fun of him.
Yeah,
He's gonna say, no, 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 no. Like, let me do this. Let me take care of this. I want Goldsmith and the Legion's blood on my hands.
I
And
could see that
that can
very well happening.
translate to a quick win. Or if the Legion come in very poised and have this scheme, it could lead to their downfall, which I think would result in a if the Black Bears beat us, Seabirds being eliminated. Like I think the Seabirds and Dan need to not be so tunnel vision in this game if that's where they are right now and realize, hey, our back is against the wall. Both of these teams are playing for a playoff spot. You need to come in and make sure that all guns blazing. And I hope they don't. I hope it doesn't become like a Goldsmith Gergis 1v1.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this.
As funny as that would be.
I think Blackbirds T-Birds need to play first because obviously Black
Yes.
Bears rides on the sea. If the Seabirds lose, right,
Yes.
then that would be when they. I don't think that's going to happen, unfortunately. I definitely have Seabirds be in the Legion this week, especially without Costa, especially with how good the Seabirds have been playing. Um, but man, would that be fun? And yeah, the Black Bears are another team where I think they kind of got, they kind of found their groove a little bit too late in the season. But we're gonna see, dude. The T-Birds, you guys are gonna be without Colin, right?
Yeah, we're gonna be without Colin.
So
And
that'll be a big
if
test.
we pull out this win, Ian brought this up, which is a funny headline. If we pull out this win, the T-Birds will have as many wins with Colin as they will without him.
Ah, very interesting.
Hey, but that's in theory right now. But that would
That's
be a fun stat.
that's a testament to you guys. Good for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I just,
Um,
I'm sure the Black Bears are going to abuse their size, and that's where Tyler needs to step up, and we have to lean into offense. And obviously, Colin is a good 80% of our offense. So, I got to shoot more. Ian's got to shoot, and obviously, we know what Tyler's capable of. So that'll be a fun one. That's really going to be a chess game. I feel like the Black Bears T-Birds game is definitely going to be a chess game.
well,
And then
another fun stat is if we pull off the upset and you guys lose, the one seed will have the same record as the worst seed on the other side.
that is so correct, Ryan. I think
So
we are
true.
looking at astronomical implications. Credit to myself and Michael in years past. The way we divvy up the conferences is no secret. And I think for the past 4 seasons, the conference records were 500 on both sides. This year,
Interesting.
nothing's 100%. So unfortunately, was our one mix up. Uh, I got nothing to throw. I just got to throw my hands up. Maybe the
Excited for next week.
draft rigging could definitely play a role in this. Maybe we do have to reassess the conferences next year if we do go along with the draft rigging. Fixing.
No,
But
dude.
it's true. A 3 and 4 team could get the 1 seed, and a 3 or 4 team can be eliminated from playoffs. And it's just wrong place, wrong time.
So the Hoopers Dogs has got to be the number one game of the week, right?
Oh, that's going to be the sellout show, right?
Yeah. That's the biggest guaranteed implications from the head to head, not having to, worry about other teams necessarily.
Yeah.
That's
That's a
what
game I want to watch. Like that's a game that I'm like, all right, like why don't the rest of the league get around and watch this one?
yep.
It's going to be really fun. I may have saved this game for last when I made the schedule on purpose. Maybe, probably not, because we all thought the Hoopers were going to suck. So
Yeah, man. I did not
yeah,
expect the Hoopers to
yeah,
be
I
here.
can't give myself that credit, but that will be fun. And I wonder if the Sizzlers are going to try to like kill you guys.
I mean, look, they're playing for the one seed. Like, dude, the immediate ticket to the conference finals is huge. That's a
Yeah,
luxury I've never had in ASL. So, like, I've in all of my finals appearances and conference finals appearances, we've had to go through another round. It's not fun. So, being able to punch that ticket would be great. They're going to be playing for their life. So are we. We're going to be playing to have some fun. And like, they say even like in the NBA, when you're playing teams like with their guys out, like guys playing with house money, like
yeah,
those are the guys you do not want to play against.
yeah.
Um, so I'm expecting honestly across the board good matchups. Whether the implications are on team side or not, but we're gonna see. I'm excited, for end of year awards and playoff talk for next week, but a lot to look forward to for the final week of ASL.
I do want to make a correction I made about the Legion. The Legion actually did secure a playoff berth. So their back will not be against the wall like I initially said. So maybe they are
Cool.
going to just let Goldsmith take a ton of threes because they don't really care.
Yeah.
But if they do lose and the Black Bears lose, obviously they'll be seeing them right in a few weeks after July 4th break. So I don't know. They do have a purpose to play with, but Ryan, now before we wrap up, I do want to ask you a few fun questions
Let's do
just
it.
to get the gears rolling. I'm going to name you a player in the ASL this year, and I want you to tell me the most undervalued aspects of said player.
Cool.
And I say valued because I don't want you to be like, oh, like, let me think. Like, who's a player who has an underrated value that it's now become like properly rated? Like, I think Nick Germano's defense is a perfect example. Like, that's been his underrated attribute. Now it's like his claim to fame. You know what I mean? So don't give me none of that silly stuff.
Okay. Are you gonna give me a name
Yeah,
or
George Kamboris, go.
okay? George Kambora's mid-range scoring. Uh, he's really developed a shot where, like, I was playing off him a little bit in our Legion game, and he would make us pay whenever I would play off that. Um, and
All
then
right,
his post defense, but I think he's known for that. So
this is a tough one. Are you ready?
yeah,
Dan Gerges.
his defense, his perimeter defense specifically. You would picture like Dan has been known to be this like 3-point shooter, kind of slow or whatever. When we played him, and I would take it out, like bro, he would meet me at like half court, and like it'd be hard for me to shake him. So when he gets locked in like that, he's a big body, and when he gets locked in, like starts moving and shuffling his feet and taking it like out of the perimeter, he can move with anyone.
Nick Resendez.
Uh I'm gonna say is playmaking because
I would have said that too.
we know he's a flashy scorer like when he's in his bag like that, but like especially this last game against the Sizzlers, like his decision making has been awesome, and that's something I love watching as a viewer.
Luke Pratty.
Yeah, Luke's having an interesting season with the Black Bears because his minutes are kind of on, kind of off. Um, his shot hasn't really been there. Here's what I'm going to say is ball security. He's averaging the least amount of turnovers for his team this year. Obviously, he's getting like the least minutes, but even if he's missing shots, you can maybe knock him for that, but you can't knock him for making bad plays.
Another hard one. AJ Clark. I mean, we glazed that kid top to bottom. So
Yeah. I mean, obviously he's known as a defense first, kind of like rebounder, scrappy guy. I'm gonna say his mid range again. Like every time I look over mid game, and he's got the ball somewhere in the paint and he puts it up. Like I never see him miss those.
Tyler Beraldi.
I'm gonna say I'm gonna say decision making, and I'm gonna say that for two reasons. He was always like Tyler's always been known for his shot and as a scorer. he's had to change that role a little bit with Steve, and he needs to know when to make that right read to take the shot versus defer it up to Steve or Pat. And I think he's done a great job with that this year. And I think it's a reason why he's earned that starting job. I know going into camp, CJ and Tyler are both fighting for that. I think he's earned it. And I think, that goes beyond just his shooting. His decision making came with it.
All right. That's all I got for you. Guys,
Great.
thank you so much for tuning in. Ryan, thank you so much for stepping up and stepping in. You're not the
Appreciate it, Andrew.
stepfather, you're the father who stepped up. I'm not
Let's
the
go. Based.
um, we will catch you guys next week. Thank you.